All right, so welcome back to Working Man's Kollel. We are in the midst, we are deep into Masechah Shabbos. We're now in, I guess, coming actually closer to the end of Masechah Shabbos. If next week we're already going to be on the 17th chapter, and it's out of 24 chapters. So we're coming towards the end. And actually the end of Masechah Shabbos deals heavily with some rabbinic laws. We're going to see today a very, very interesting law that was instituted by the rabbis. And that's really where the end of Masechah Shabbos focuses. There is one Mishnah, or there's one parak, the 19th parak, which deals with the laws of bris milah on Shabbos, and actually bris milah in general. That's where the laws of bris milah really are focused in, is the 19th chapter, which we'll get to in a few weeks. But we're really coming towards the end. So we need to do maybe you guys on a Monday. No, it doesn't have to be so immediate. In the next couple of weeks on Monday, leave some time for you guys to discuss the next Masechta you want to do. So far we've done Brachos, Peah, and Shabbos. So you guys should look through the Shisha Sidrei Mishnah and figure out the next Masechta you guys want to do, and just let me know a few weeks in advance in case there's any svarim I need to get to learn the Masechta. Okay.
Well, the next holiday is Hanukkah, but there is no Mishnah for Hanukkah.
No, all the Gemaras of Hanukkah are in Shabbos actually.
Yeah.
They're in Masechah Shabbos in Parak Bamem Adlikin. But I don't think we're going to be finished with Shabbos by Hanukkah. I mean, it's going to be probably right after Hanukkah. So
it might be more interesting to do some of the halachas of Hanukkah in the morning, after you do
right.
washing the hands.
Right, for sure. No, that's for sure. Yeah. So let's think about what we want to do on Wednesdays.
Okay.
I was thinking maybe along the same lines that Charlie's thinking, to do Psachim, because will be at that point in January, will be about 12 15 weeks away from Pesach, and it could be we'll even be able to complete the entire Masechta by Pesach, because we've already seen the first chapter and the 10th chapter the last 2 years. So so I think we actually could accomplish learning Maseches Psachim by Pesach. But anyway, I'll let you guys get back to me on that.
Or you could do Megillah also.
Do Megillah before Purim. Yeah, that we definitely can do. That we definitely can do. All right, good. Lots of good options. We could also just do Kudshim, learn through Kudshim, in order so that we can get ready for the next holiday that's coming, which is Bias Gol Tzedek Mimher B'Yameinu. Mashiach. So that's maybe we should learn Kudshim. Okay, but we're in Masechah Shabbos still, and we have a lot to learn in Masechah Shabbos. Says the Mishnah in the 16th chapter, Parak Tes Zayin, Kol Kisvei HaKodesh, that one should save all Kisvei Kodesh. Kisvei Kodesh is are any of the holy books. What are the holy writings, the sacred writings? So anything that is written with God's name, Matzilan Oso Mipnei Hadleka, should be saved from a fire. So to give context to the Mishnah is jumping right into a scene over here. The scene is that there's a fire that breaks out. Can you imagine, Rahman al-Islam, God forbid, a million times, God forbid, that there's a fire. We have in mind those that are in Irvine and Orange County that unfortunately are dealing with the fires over there. I spoke to Rabbi Senior, by the way, the rabbi of Beth Jacob Irvine, who said that their community is far enough away that they're actually they've become almost like a safe house for a lot of the people that were evacuated. But nevertheless, it's not a pretty sight over there. So we have them.
In the past, we've had fire. Some of the wildfires come fairly close to the main part of the city. they've come, down 52, close to University City in the
Really?
past.
Wow. Wow. So no, it's a scary, very, very scary thing, and obviously a very serious thing. So that's the scene that this Mishnah is creating over here, is that there is some sort of a fire that breaks out. So says the Mishnah, you can, in the face of a fire, you could save the Kisvei HaKodesh, you could save the holy writings, bein shekar behen, bein she'ein kar behen, whether you're learning them or you're not learning them, which is just, which you have to just stop and consider this for a second, right? We'll have to discuss, what this halacha is that the Mishnah is handling with, is grappling with. But there was a hava amina. There is a thought that the Mishnah is entertaining, that one would, let's say we're right now in the middle of learning Sefer Bereshis. We're learning Parshas Lech Lecha, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have a Bereshis, a Shemos, a Vayikra, a Bamidbar, a Devarim, a Sefer Yehoshua, there's a thought that is being entertained over here in the Mishnah that I'm learning Sefer Bereshis right now, so maybe that should be the only one I save. What is going on over here? Well, what is this halacha that you would even entertain such a thought? And even though they're written even if it's written in any language, to unim gniza, they would need to be put in the gniza. They'd be have to be buried. Okay, fine. So the Gemara is discussing, the Mishnah is then going to discuss some halachas about Hilchos Talmud Torah on Shabbos anyway. Just to sum up, we're not going to go through the whole Mishnah because I want to see some more Mishnahs, because we're going to get to exactly what the Mishnah is dealing with, and what the parak is dealing with. But just to sum up the next part of the Mishnah, which is that the Mishnah discusses things, basically a sense of prioritizing the type of learning one does on Shabbos. And the Gemara explains that the reason why we need to prioritize certain type of learning over others on Shabbos is because Shabbos is really our only time as working people, or people that are busy during the week. And Shabbos, we shut everything down. Then Shabbos is our only time to really learn. And because it's our only time to learn, the rabbis were concerned that we would be busy on Shabbos learning or studying the quote unquote easy or quick reads that one would have time to study during the week. For example, Sefer Tehillim. Sefer Tehillim is a quick read. There is a lot of depth in Sefer Tehillim, but generally speaking, a person reads through a whole parak and they create a theme from the parak, a tefillah from the parak. Others along the same category are Koheles, any of the other ksuvim, Shir Hashirim, or Megillas Esther even. Any of these types of writings of ksuvim are not the things that people, a Musar Sfarim, Mishlei. There's a lot of depth in Mishlei, but at the end of the day, it's a Musar Sefer, which is something that does not take a lot of analytics to be able to understand or apply, versus learning Gemara. Learning Gemara is something, Torah Sheba'al Peh, is something that people literally spend their entire life doing. The Gedolim spend 18 to 20 hours of their day studying Gemara, Shulchan Aruch. These very, very important and deep parts of our Masorah, which are in our Torah Sheba'al Peh. Those are things that require a lot more concentration, more focus, more time. And those are the things you should learn on Shabbos, because the rest of the week you can read Tehillim, you could go through Megillas relatively easily, you could learn the Musar Sfarim of Mishlei and Koheles. However, halacha is something that needs more time. So the rabbis thought that it would be better for you to learn halacha on Shabbos. This does not include things that are part of your daily routine, right? If let's say a person has a set routine that they include Tehillim as part of their davening, so that one would be allowed to do on Shabbos. What we're talking about is taking a chunk of your day dedicated specifically, let's say one wants to go through the entire chapter, the parak of Tehillim on Shabbos. That is something that the rabbis would dissuade a person from, and better that they learn through Gemara, Halacha, the Parsha in depth, something of that nature. The other thing I would mention is that this is not to say that, the only thing I want to learn and the only thing I'm going to learn is Tehillim, but the rabbis told me I can't. So I'm just going to have another piece of Shabbos cake and take a 3-hour nap. If it's the decision between you just you're not spending any time involved in anything meaningful versus on Shabbos versus reading Tehillim, obviously a person should read Tehillim. What we're talking about is someone actually has to make a decision what I'm going to be doing. Should I learn through Masechah Shabbos in depth, learn through the Mishnayos, review the learning I've been doing during the week, or should I do Sefer Tehillim? So then it'd be better to do, of course, Halacha, Mishnayos, Gemara, but not at the expense of not doing anything meaningful. Of course, Sefer Tehillim would be a wonderful thing to study on Shabbos. Okay, continuing in the next Mishnah, Matzil and Mazon Shalosh Seudos. So the first halacha that came out from the Mishnah was that a person is able to save the Kisvei HaKodesh. They're able to save the holy writings. And as long as it is Kisvei Kodesh, as long as it has Hashem's name, one could save that. Matzil and Mazon Shalosh Seudos. They could save their 3 meals. Okay, haroy la'adam la'adam, haroy lebehema. They should save the food that is suitable for a person, save the food that is suitable for their animals. Ketzad, what would be the scenario? Nafla deleka b'leilei Shabbos. Let's say the fire started on the eve of Shabbos. Matzil and mazon shalosh seudos. So you should save all 3 meals. Why? Because now you're going to need still to eat 3 meals on Shabbos. However, if the fire broke out in the morning, you already had your night meal. So therefore, matzil and mazon stay seudos. Therefore, you should only save 2 meals. And let's say the fire started in the afternoon. B'mincha mazon seuda achas. You only need to save shalosh seudos. But Rabbi Yossi says la'olam matzil and mazon shalosh seudos. You could always save 3 meals for on Shabbos. Okay.
How about if you're in the middle of a meal?
So if you're in the middle of the meal, so I think that it would depend on whether or not you fulfilled your mitzvah. If you fulfilled your mitzvah with the amount that you've eaten, so then according to the Tanna Kama, you would leave everything at the table.
You would leave it.
Leave it. According to the Tanna Kama, according to the first opinion, according to Rabbi Yossi, you could save it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then the Mishnah also says here, look at this as well. As in the same, this is all in the same scenario of there's a fire that broke out. So look at this. The Mishnah says over here, let's say you need to save clothing. So lovesh kol mashi yachal lilbosh. So how do you save the clothing? You throw on as much as you can. You wear as much as you can, and that's how you're going to save the clothing. You just put on as many jackets and as many pants, as many hats as you can, and then you're able to save the clothing that way.
So the theory is you can't carry them out; you have to wear them out.
You have to wear them out. You can't. You can't
pack a suitcase.
Can't carry them out. So hold on one second. Let's stop and analyze this Mishnah for a minute. All these Mishnahs, this whole theme from the Mishnah over here. Okay, what's going on? So, the scenario again, a fire breaks out on Shabbos. So the Mishnah is trying to figure out what are the things you're allowed to save and what are the things that you're not allowed to save. So what would be the potential problem of saving something? What would be the potential problem of saving something? If I'm going out into the Rishus HaYachid, meaning that I'm not going to be violating Hotzah, right? I should be able to save everything, right? And if the only way to save things would be by carrying it into the Rishus Harabim, by violating Hotzah, that would be an Isur D'Oraisa. So what gives me the right to save anything? What would give me? I know it's crazy to say, but even a Sefer Torah. Well, what would even give the person the right to save a Sefer Torah? It would be passive to leave the Sefer Torah, right? It's sitting on the table or it's sitting in the Aron Kodesh. So I'm being passive. And I'm not going to actively violate a prohibition from the Torah by carrying it outside. So what's going on over here? If I'm allowed to carry things out, I should just carry it out. And if I'm not allowed to, so I can't take anything. What is this middle category over here? What is this halacha that is only allowing me to carry certain things? So this seems to be a machlokes between Rashi and Tosfos, but it really starts with a Gemara over here on Daf Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. I believe, yeah, Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. The Gemara says the following: Michti. Let's analyze the halacha over here. This scenario over here. Says the Gemara, Behetera katarech. If it's permissible for him to handle these things on Shabbos, either it's not muksa, he's carrying it into another private domain, he's not violating any prohibitions on Shabbos. So then, nitol tfei. He should save more, no? Says the Gemara, Amar Rava. Rava said the following. He explained the following: Mitoch she'adam bahul al mamono. That since a person is anxious about their property, they're anxious about their possessions, about their estate. So then, isharisle, if we say you're able to take out everything, so what's going to happen? It would be, he'd figure out that it's a lot more efficient than taking everything out. It would be a lot more efficient to extinguish the fire. Asi le kiboy. The person's going to come to extinguish the flame. So Rava's explaining the halacha as follows. Of course, we're talking about a scenario that you wouldn't be violating any prohibitions by carrying it out. Of course not, because if you were going to violate any prohibitions, we wouldn't allow you to take anything. If we're allowing you to take something, that means that it must be that technically it's permitted. But if we allow you to take everything, then we're concerned the person is going to extinguish the flame. Now, obviously, we're not talking about a scenario where it would be hatzalas nefashos. Obviously, we're not talking about pekuach nefesh, right? Obviously. We're obviously talking about a scenario that this is an isolated property, right? It's an isolated property that if you let the place burn and burn and burn, the only threat is a financial one. Of course, that's of course what we're talking about. The only threat is a financial one. It's in an area that it is not going to cause a wildfire. It's in an area that it is not near any other properties. It's not near any other people. It is, the people are safe. It is not going to spread potentially to anyone else. We're talking about a contained fire. So a contained fire that is not posing a threat onto anyone's life. The only threat is a financial one. So then, if that's the case, if we allow the person to extinguish the flame, if we allow the person to take out everything, so then they're going to come to extinguish the flame. Extinguishing the flame in the face of a financial concern, that's an Isser D'Oraisa to extinguish the flame. It's kiboy. And an Isser D'Oraisa is not going to override a financial threat. That's like the Ramah quotes, is a famous Ramah. Quotes from the Gemara that how much does one need to spend of their bank account to fulfill a mitzvah essay? Says the Gemara, that a person should only spend up to 1/5 of their bank account to fulfill a positive commandment. But what about a negative commandment? So a negative commandment, afilu kol mamono, even all of their finances or their property should be spent to prevent someone from violating a negative commandment. right? That's that's the halacha. I mean, to violate a negative commandment, the only thing you don't need to give up would be your life. Everything short of your life, you'd have to give up to not violate a negative commandment. And even your life, you'd give up to violate three negative commandments, lest you violate three negative commandments, right? Murder, promiscuity, and idolatry. So over here, it would be violating a negative commandment of extinguishing the flame on Shabbos. That's an Isser D'Oraisa. And since no one's life is in danger, it's only a financial threat. So we can't allow you to extinguish the flame. And if we let you take everything out of the house, aside for your basic necessities, right? Aside for your basic necessities, so then the person is going to just end up extinguishing the flame. Person's going to end up extinguishing the flame. So this is the halacha of this Mishnah. So what were the rabbis so concerned about? Of course, it ultimately it's a concern that they're going to extinguish the flame, and that's exactly what Tosos says over here. Tosos records from that Gemara on the very first Tosos in the Masechta. Says Tosos, Omer Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam says the Kula Hai Pirka. This entire parak, this entire chapter, Ari Kishinafla Deleka Ba'oso Bias. Talking about a scenario where a fire broke out in the home, Obosa Chatzar, or in a courtyard. Because since the fire is there, it's present, the person is going to become anxious. The person is going to be extinguishing the flame. However, when you look at Rashi, you see that there's an additional element over here. That let's say the person was not necessarily so concerned about putting out the flame, or let's say putting out the flame was beyond their control. Let's say it wasn't possible to put out the flame. They know it's not possible for them to put out the flame. It's already out of control, and it's too difficult for them to put out the flame, whatever it may be. Let's say that reason falls away. So then would we allow the person to take out everything that they possibly can? So says Rashi, no. And this is where Rashi argues on Tosos. Rashi says the following. Rashi matzilon oso, kitekatani lekamon lemavoy sheinu mefulosh v'tircha ba'almahu. Says Rashi, it's tircha ba'almahu. It would be an extra exertion of energy to try and save everything. Therefore, we're only going to allow you to take out what you need. Anything beyond that would be tircha. It would not be, I know it's going to sound very surprising, it wouldn't be in the spirit of Shabbos. You'd be exerting yourself too much on Shabbos, and we can't allow such a thing. So when it comes to just simply tircha, says the Shulchan Aruch that b'makom hefsid, that if one would incur a severe financial loss, so then then that would trump tircha. So, for example, let's say a person has the Shulchan Aruch says an example of, let's say a person has very expensive dining ware or antiques or even cash, and they're concerned that the cash is going to go up in flames, and they have $100,000 in cash sitting in their house. So what we're going to say, no, you're only allowed to take out your three square meals of Shabbos, and everything else has to stay. You're only allowed to take out a few svarim, and everything else has to stay. Wait, I'm going to lose $100,000, right? My life's not at risk. I understand that. Okay, I can't put out the fire, but okay, and everything else. I mean, we're talking about not so much else in property damage, but we're talking about $100,000 cash I'm going to lose. So according to Rashi, there would be no problem with taking out such a thing, and that's recorded in Shulchan Aruch. There is another concern that's brought down from Rabbi Kiva Eger, that he says that the other concern, of course, would be one where if the person is in an area where taking things out would be going into a Rishos HaRabim, for sure that would be a problem. But says Rabbi Kiva Eger, today you can be more lenient in taking more things out, because today we don't have a real Rishos HaRabim. Today, it's very hard to come to an actual real Rosh Hashanah unless a person literally lives, in the middle of the highway, and they're going to be taking things out onto the highway that, it almost doesn't exist today. So generally speaking, in suburbia, you're not walking into a Rosh Hashanah even when there's no Eruv there, and therefore you would be allowed to take out much, much more. That's what Rabbi Kiva says. This is also quoted by the Sefer HaTruma, the Kolbo, and the Orchos Chaim all quote the same din. I want to get to one more nafkamin over here between all these opinions. Again, we have a machlokus over here between Rashi and Tosos about what is the prohibition of taking things out on Shabbos in a scenario where you're not going into Rosh Hashanah in the face of a financial loss, or rather in the face of the arsenal danger. So number one, according to Tosos, based on the Gemara, is that we are concerned that a person is going to extinguish the flame because they're concerned about their property. They're going to end up extinguishing the flame. Therefore, we put a limit on how much you're able to take out. And the second reason is Rashi's reason, which is that there's also a tircha element that you're going to end up taking. It's going to be burdensome on a person on Shabbos. So the Shulchan Aruch talks about whether or not you're allowed to have other people come over and take things out for you. Okay? Can I invite people over to take things out for me? So what would you say based on these two reasonings?
The Mishnah said you could do that. Well, in the case of food, you could have other people come and take food out.
Right. In the case of food, the Mishnah says you could have other people come and take food. Why?
Because it'd be destroyed. It'd be used.
So, but I thought even though, everything's going to be destroyed. That's the whole premise over here. So why would other people be allowed to take out more than me? Because it's not their property. So we're not concerned they're going to put out the flame. They know it's Shabbos and they know that they can't put out the flame. And they don't have the Yetzer Hara of, this is my stuff and I don't want to see it go up in flames, so I'm going to just put out the fire. But based on Rashi, though, we even have to put a limit on how much other people are allowed to take out, because at the end of the day, it would be a tircha for them to take out everything. Right? But if other people are taking things out, so then it wouldn't be an issue. So let's just see how we paskin over here in Shulchan Aruch. Let's just go through the Shulchan Aruch over here. The Shulchan Aruch says the following:
Can you have other people put out the fire? I mean, like a fire department.
So that's what I wanted to get to also, which is exactly what Jerry's saying. What about other people putting out the fire? Can I call the fire department? Right? What about calling the fire department? So let me just find it in Shulchan Aruch. Says the Shulchan Aruch the following, Jerry. Simin Shin Lamed Daled Seif Chaf Vav. Yachol Lomar Mepnei Eni Yehudi. You could tell a non-Jew, Kol HaMechabe Eno Mafsid, that anyone that puts out the fire, you wouldn't lose anything. Meaning, like do what you need to do to get rid of the fire. Okay. Even if they're not there already, you could even call them to tell them to come. Even though they're going to put it out when they come. Meaning, you can't, we're talking about an Isser D'Oraisa over here, putting out the fire, right? So there's an Isser of telling a non-Jew to violate an Isser D'Oraisa, right? That's called Amir Lakum, okay? So what am I supposed to do in this scenario? So what I can do in this scenario is call the fire department and I say, there's a fire at X, Y, and Z drive, number 34. Okay. I don't tell them come here and put it out. I just say that there's a fire here. So what are they going to do? They're going to come and put it out. Now, usually that would be a problem of Amir La'akum. Why? Because that's a joke, right? It's obviously Amir La'akum. But here we're talking it's still degrading its level of Amir La'akum. And in this scenario, there would be no problem of telling the non-Jew, oh, there's a fire here, even though you know for sure this is going to bring them and they're going to put out the fire. Says Shulchan Aruch further, this applies to any potential danger that could arise. Let's say I just my brother-in-law just sent a picture to our family chat with a picture. He lives in New Jersey, in Bergenfield, New Jersey, and he sent a picture of a fox that they found in their backyard. There's a fox sitting on their they have a little swing set, and sitting on the slide. Like the fox just went to go have fun in the swing set. Sitting in the playground is an actual fox, full-grown fox sitting there, which potentially could be dangerous. So that's, what do you do in that scenario? Can you call animal control, right? So this is the Shulchan Aruch saying there would be no problem with getting animal control. Obviously, having a non-Jew call is always better. This is what it says. This is what it says in Shulchan Aruch. Says the Ramah, just again to clarify for anyone that would be concerned. Says the Ramah, and this is a critical Ramah in Hilchos Shabbos, right over here. V'chol hadinim haniskarim b'dini hadleika hani mili b'yamehem. All of these halachas that we're talking about all apply back in those days. Okay, this is a critical Ramah. This is all applying to back in those days. Aval b'zman hazeh, she'anu sheruyin bein enam Yehudim. We live amongst non-Jews, especially here in La Jolla, California. This is not like Lakewood, New Jersey, but even in Lakewood, New Jersey, okay, we live amongst non-Jews. V'chashash sakanas nefashos. If there is an inkling of a potential that this could lead to any sort of danger, so we look like the crazy religious fanatics if we don't pick up the phone and call the fire department. And that could lead to more danger, could lead to anti-Semitism, right? Says the Ramah, Kasvu harishonim v'achronim zal. Say all the Rishonim and all the Achronim, shemuter lichbos deleka b'Shabbos mishum diyesh ba sakanas nefashos. Put out any fire now that you come to. You should not handle the shaila. Don't deal with it. Don't grapple with it. Don't think, you know what, honey, grab the cholent. I'm grabbing the chumash and leave everything else. Okay, leave everything else. I'm grabbing the cholent and the chumash. Let's go. That's meshugeh, right? Every single non-Jew in the world is going to look. You're going to end up on the front times of even the Wall Street Journal. You're going to end up on the front.
Does that include putting it out yourself, or
so then you can even put it out yourself?
Okay,
that's exactly what the Ramah says. You could even put it out yourself in such a scenario, right?
So is that universally accepted?
This is what, and that's exactly what the Ramah says. He says, Kosfu harishonim v'achronim zal. That type of language is never used. That kind of universal language of.
Wouldn't that be different?
Everyone says this.
Wouldn't it be different if you're living in Israel and you're living amongst the Jews?
So I don't know if the concern is Chilul Hashem. I mean, we live in such a small world.
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
but the Ramah just said
Israel,
that because we live amongst the non-Jews.
We live amongst the non-Jews is a that's a term that's spoken on scale. It's a relative term, right? Okay. Then he's talking about Krakow in the Ramah died in 1572, right? So we're talking about the middle of the 16th century. Okay, so yeah. Would they have heard in La Jolla, California, in the middle of the 16th century that anything happened in Krakow over Shabbos? No, but today, no, right? Today that we'll hear about it. The second Shabbos is over, right?
Yeah.
that there was a religious fanatic in La Jolla, California, that wouldn't put out their small fire, their small kitchen fire, because and all they saved from the house was a chumash and the cholent pot, right? That it makes us sound absolutely crazy. It's going to lead to anti-Semitism. So that's why the Ramah over here is talking about in universal terms. Because of sakanas nefashos. And then look at the next line of the Shulchan Aruch. I have to underline this. I never underlined this before. This is one of the most. This is one of the strongest lines in the entire Ramah, all of Shulchan Aruch. He says, the hazaris harezim meshubach. And if you run to put out the fire, so then that's meshubach. That's praiseworthy, right? Because God forbid you lead to any sort of anti-Semitism. It would be absolutely terrible. That's exactly to your point, Charlie, that it's all subjective, it's all relative. That if you know there's absolutely no sakana that can come from this at all, and I don't mean sakana in the sense that the fire is going to hurt you, but even other emotional fires are going to rise from this that could end up hurting you, like anti-Semitism and the like. Let's say a person is for Shabbos, they're out in the middle of the mountain somewhere, and they set up camp for themselves, and they are hundreds of miles from anyone. There is no one that would even hear of the fire. The fire is it's safe and contained. No one's going to ever hear about it in a million years. So in such a scenario, so it goes back to the Din of the Gemara. It goes back to the original halacha that okay, you could save save your chumash, save your whatever you need to eat, and the like. So it would go back to the Din of the Gemara, but it's such a far-fetched scenario that no one is going to hear about it, and there's no physical danger. It's too far-fetched. Sakanas safek, even if you have the slightest doubt that maybe there could be a sakana that comes from this mutter lichbos afilu dleika bebeso shel eni Yehudi, even if the fire is in the home of a non-Jew, you're allowed to go out of your way to help put it out. You hear this? This is what it says in Shulchan V'chein noagin. This is the way that we paskin. He quotes from the Trumas Hadeshen, Simin Nunches. So this is what it says in Shulchan Aruch. For sure, there'd be absolutely no problem with putting it out, even if there's the slightest inkling of potential danger that could arise from not extinguishing it. Even back to the Din of the Gemara, there was something that I was remiss in not pointing out. When we say saving the books today, says the Shulchan Aruch the following. He says, Kol kisvei hakodesh matzilan ha'idna. Today, save all holy books. And when he says holy books, he means literally everything. Empty out the entire library, the English volumes, the Hebrew volumes that don't have God's name, Spanish volumes. It doesn't matter what language it's written in, whether or not God's name is there. If it is a holy work, a Torah volume, save it. Okay, he says, and says the Magen Avram, the reason, ha'inna, says the Magen Avram in Sifka and Tesvav, the batzir lavo v'natnu kol hasfarim lichtov shelo yishkachu v'tu'unim gniza. Because the reason why we have the Sfarim today written in English and written in Spanish and in French and all these languages is because there was a need to write all these down in order so we don't forget the Torah. And therefore these books have taken on a status of holiness. You need to treat those books with holiness. You need to be very, very careful with those Sfarim. I'll tell you a great story about the concern that we have for regular Sfarim today. That we need to make sure we have great concern over. I was an editor for a Torah journal. It's actually right over here. The Beis Yitzchak is a sefer that I was an editor for, we published it in Yeshiva University. Published it in memory of Rabbi Aaron Lichtenstein. It was about 4 or 5 years ago. So so when we were working on this volume, so when I was editing the articles that were written in the Sefer, so so there was a few articles that one of the Rosh Yeshiva that published the work, they sent it to me in digital format, and as anyone who's typing online, they were copying from, let's say, Sefaria, like just copying and pasting the pasuk instead of typing it out in full form. And obviously what happens from there is that the actual name of Hashem gets copied along with it. And, they just, I guess they were working quickly and didn't realize. So I still had it in digital form. So I went to Rav Shechter and I asked Rav Shechter, number one, should we publish it like this with God's name? And number two is, would it be a problem for me to backspace over God's name on the computer, right? Mm-hmm. Can I delete God's name digitally? So Rav Shechter said there's no problem with deleting it digitally because there would be no problem of mochik, of erasing God's name, of mechikas Hashem on a computer, because it's not actually there in the computer, right? We know that the way computers work is that the image is being recreated every second, right? It's not actually there, right? If I scroll up, I'm going to erase God's name. It's not going to be there anymore on the screen, right? It's not like I'm scrolling through an actual book. I'm looking at an image. And the image is not even tangible or real. So he felt as though there's definitely no issue with erasing God's name. And he told me that he felt that I definitely should not include God's name in the Sefer. He says, because even though people are supposed to treat all Sfarim in a holy way, English works, all works, anything that is Torah related in a holy and dignified fashion, unfortunately, we're not very careful with it. And you see even the way people will treat a chumash, to throw it around or leave it on a seat, or not treat it in a highest. They'll put a newspaper on top of a chumash, or their coffee on top of a chumash. And it's very disrespectful. So if that's the way they're treating a chumash, can't imagine a sefer that's just a regular sefer in a Jewish library, they're going to treat any better. So, but even though that's not what they're supposed to, of course, they're supposed to treat it with the utmost respect. So says the Magen Avram, of course, we have to save all Sfarim in such a scenario. Again, but we're talking about a scenario that is so far-fetched that you actually wouldn't put out the fire, like the Ramah said, that if there's even an inkling of a potential that it could lead to any sakana, any anti-Semitism, anything like that, for sure you have to put it out. And you even go help a non-Jew put out their fire, if God forbid they are dealing with a fire on Shabbos. All right, we'll stop here. Next week we will go to Perek Yud Zion, God willing, the halachos of muksa, which we haven't spent a long time on. So we'll spend next week on the halachos of muksa. All right.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.